This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries, the story of a lonely housewife in Maine who searched for love in her newspaper's personal columns. 2 years ago, she went on a blind date and vanished. And on the Queen Mary, dozens of eyewitnesses claim they have seen or heard ghosts. Last month, parapsychologists tape-recorded phantom sounds of what some believe is a shipwreck that took place 40 years earlier. We'll also examine the case of a man awaiting trial for the murder of 2 teenage girls. Joe Shepard has escaped. Perhaps you can help catch him. Tonight's cases feature ordinary people thrust into a vortex of mystery, heartbreak, and intrigue. Each one is searching for that vital clue to end a story that so far has no ending. Perhaps you can help. Join me. You may be able to help solve a mystery. This is the Queen Mary, now permanently moored in Long Beach, California. On her decks and in her corridors, people have seen and heard things they can't explain.
I'd been here about 14 years when I'd first had the first experience with actually seeing what I thought to be a ghost. It was a December morning. I was in the work area, and for some reason I picked up a cup of coffee, went out to the table, and there was a lady sitting there. I was so fascinated by her dress. She appeared to be in a late afternoon cocktail-type dress from the 40s. She had dark hair rolled at the sides, no makeup on. She seemed to be very pale, but I never saw a movement. I left the table, went up about 10 feet, turned around because I wanted to take another look, and there was nothing there.
I am probably the last person that should have had these experiences because I'm such a skeptic. One day I was standing on the stairs of the pool, and out of the corner of my right eye, I saw a woman, probably in her 60s or 70s, in black and white. So I went down the stairs and around the pillar expecting to find her standing there, and she wasn't anywhere to be found. It was only a matter of seconds. She couldn't have gone anywhere.
Several others besides Carol and Nancy say they have seen or heard ghosts here in the Queen Mary's first-class pool. How do we explain these sightings by reportedly well-balanced, level-headed people? Could they simply result from the power of suggestion, stimulated by an eerie location? Some parapsychologists believe that all locations are haunted. That is, they retain memories of past events, as some people with psychic sensitivities, or ESP, experience as hauntings. Whatever the explanation, the Queen Mary seems to be inhabited by something ethereal that has been seen and heard, but not explained.
Oh, I'm happy and gay 'cause I'm sailing away.
The Queen Mary took her maiden voyage on May 27, 1936, and transported the titled and elite from both sides of the Atlantic.
The Queen Mary, how'd you like to come with me?
During that 5-day voyage, the Queen Mary was a floating party, a living symbol of luxury travel.
A British crew, so when I go over the sea, the Queen Mary takes me.
In the Second World War, the Queen Mary was turned into a troop ship. Due to her ghostly gray camouflage, she was ironically nicknamed the Gray Ghost. After the war, she reverted back to her former glory and crossed the ocean a total of 1,001 times. In the over 30 years the ship was at sea, she witnessed 4 births and at least 49 recorded deaths. After her arrival in Long Beach in 1967, one of the first people to work on board was Marine Engineer John Smith.
Part of my duties was to check and learn this ship thoroughly, and so I explored it in the evenings on my regular day's work was done.
His job took him into the remote regions of the ship's bow, and several times over a 2-month period, he heard something where there should only have been silence. He heard the sounds of metal tearing, water rushing, and then men screaming.
It sounded like there had been a rupture of the ship's hull. It was frightful. I went up to the extreme bow section of the ship. The sound was here, but there was no water. Had nothing to cause it. I don't believe in supernatural things, but in all my experiences as a marine engineer, I've never seen anything like this.
Years later, Smith read about a wartime tragedy, the Queen Mary's accidental collision with a British cruiser named the Kurosawa. Over 300 men were killed. The Queen Mary's bow sliced the Kurosawa in half.
After I read that article, I was so shook up and so overwhelmed. The very area I heard that mysterious water rushing was this exact same area that was damaged when the ship hit the Curacao. I said, this is what it would have sounded and felt like if I had been in that compartment at the time. But I knew it couldn't be. That was 30 years earlier. It couldn't be anything.
Over the years, dozens of sightings have been reported. Late one night, in the pool area, maintenance supervisor Kathy Love and a co-worker heard mysterious sounds.
Okay. After that, we came into the pool, and I heard giggling, sound of a little girl or a child playing in the area. And at that point, I noticed there was splashing. The splashing stopped, the giggling continued, and we observed the footprints of a small child walking across into the locker room. I know that I saw what I saw. I'm not sure exactly why I saw it, but I know it was there.
Several unexplained encounters have occurred in Shaft Alley, deep within the ship, near the engine room. Here, in 1966, during a routine fire drill, a man named John Pedder was crushed to death in a watertight door. Some believe Pedder still haunts Shaft Alley.
What did they say he was?
It was down here in Shaft Alley somewhere.
Both tour members and employees have experienced hauntings in Shaft Alley.
Blue coveralls and the beard?
Yeah, said he was dressed in blue coveralls and he had a beard. There was 2 different tour groups that said it.
I had a second experience down in Shaft Alley. It was about 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening. I was working in the capacity of a lead guide, which meant my job was to close down the tour route and make sure that there weren't any stragglers behind. And I don't know why I turned around, but I turned around, and standing right behind me on the step was a man. He had blue overalls, they were dirty. When I stepped aside to let him go by, he wasn't there. He was gone. I don't necessarily believe any other ghost stories that other people have come up with. I only know what I saw, and I only believe what I saw with my own eyes.
Last month, Unsolved Mysteries brought to the Queen Mary a team of experts who've spent decades investigating hauntings. Using sophisticated recording equipment, they would attempt to verify the eyewitness accounts.
Head out, and as soon as I got around the corner, it started in again. He came in here and he came out as well.
Danish-born William Roll is one of the world's leading authorities on poltergeists.
I'm often asked the question, do you believe in ghosts? And what I expect I will be asked, you know, when I finish this investigation, are there ghosts on this ship? And these are questions that I cannot answer.
No, absolutely not.
Tony Cornell has researched paranormal activity for 25 years.
I am a skeptic, but at the same time I must allow for the fact that other people who are very sane and sensible have seen things and experienced things. The apparitional stuff, I think, is probably the most interesting. The stuff in the pool and the stuff in Shaft Alley look as if they are repeated cases so often that they must be genuine.
Cornell set up his surveillance equipment. William Roll led a team of psychics on board. All 6 claimed to know nothing about the ship's history or about the haunting occurrences. Armed with maps and their psychic sensitivity, they struck off in many different directions, alone. After this search, the psychics gathered together to compare notes. Though some had nothing to report, others sensed a great deal of activity that coincided with eyewitness reports.
The bow of the ship. Did you mention something about a collision or something like that?
Yeah, I felt a collision.
I see.
I felt the impression of a collision.
I see.
You know the history of the Queen Mary?
No.
Sure.
I don't.
Yes.
But I definitely felt the movement of the ship, and I felt the jerking hit and the sensations in the body, and I did hear footsteps.
I see. So let's go to the next one.
In Shaft Alley, one psychic sensed a 20-year-old tragedy.
Janice, would you describe your experiences in that area?
I felt that there had been, not that I was hearing it physically, but that at times someone could hear a very rhythmical banging, as if someone had a wrench or a large piece of iron banging against a wrench.
A wrench?
A wrench.
Right.
That was the...
Not a hammer?
No, it would be a wrench. Someone had apparently gotten trapped.
It is a fact that some psychics manage to pick up things, and you can't quite see how they got it. But you've got to be suspicious about this, because there's a thing called feedback. I mean, I've met enough mediums now who've read what they want to tell you in the newspaper.
One investigator did find something. While William Roll was surveying the bow area, he heard some unusual sounds he couldn't explain.
There was the sound of 2 men talking, and it was heard by the security guard who brought me there and by myself, and it seemed to come from the lower levels of the bow of the ship.
You getting any sounds of...
In 30 years of investigation, this was the first time that Roll had heard an unexplained sound that had been reported by a witness. In this case, he believes what he perceived was genuine. Roll placed a voice-activated tape recorder in the bow area at the same spot where the voices were heard.
It's 3:15 a.m.
For most of the night, this is what was recorded. Nothing. In the early morning, for a full 2 minutes, the tape recorder picked up sounds where no sounds should be. This is a condensed version of the actual tape. Earlier, the bow had been sealed off. The researchers attempted to duplicate the sounds through mechanical means. They were unsuccessful.
What we can conclude is that there is a physical source for the sounds. Now, is it parapsychological, or does it have some other kind of source? And that still remains uncertain.
Man has had this kind of experience as long as recorded history. It is a human experience. It's going to continue going on, and somebody's got to look at it. It's a challenge, and it's a mystery that has got to be solved.
What can explain these hauntings? Overactive imagination, a quest for publicity, or something more intangible, something supernatural? Is the Queen Mary haunted? We cannot say yes, but we cannot say no. February 27th, 1978, Tellico Plains, Tennessee. In a parked car, 16-year-old Roxanne Woodson fought off the advances of a man named Joe Shepard. Two friends watched from the back seat. Roxanne escaped and ran off into the night. Joe chased after her. Roxanne never returned. When Roxanne failed to come home, her family began to worry.
You just wring your hands and there's no outlet. There's no relief because you haven't got her. She's gone. You don't know what's happened to her. And she's out there and you can't reach her. And you can't help her.
After 10 years, the case of Roxanne Woodson still haunts her family and everyone living in Tellico Plains, Tennessee. For weeks, there was no trace of Roxanne. And as her investigation unfolded, the police became convinced that the last person who saw her, Joe Shepard, was a psychopathic killer. The night after Roxanne Woodson was reported missing, police went to the home where Joe Shepard lived with his parents to take him in for questioning. The officers waited while Joe went into his bedroom to put on his boots.
DA just wants to talk to him.
Well, what does he want to talk to him about? Joe's talked to him over and over again.
Joe reached for a shotgun.
You got a gun, Bill?
The officers fired 2 warning shots. After a brief struggle, they wrestled the gun away from him. He was then brought in for interrogation.
When was the last time you saw Roxanne Woodson?
Joe's initial story was that he had attempted to seduce Roxanne, and she had gotten mad at him at his persistent efforts and had jumped from the car and run into the woods, that he went running after her. And finally Joe came back telling the 2 boys that he'd tried to get her back and that he didn't know where she'd gone.
Joe Shepard was booked for assaulting a police officer, made bond, and was released. For several days, over 60 people combed through the woods looking for Roxanne. Joe voluntarily joined them. The police brought in dogs to follow Roxanne's scent into the woods. They tracked her only a few yards, and then the trail abruptly stopped. Still, the searchers found no trace of Roxanne, and the girl's family began to panic.
We just fell on our knees and said, oh, God, no, oh, God, no, not her. She loved her daddy so much, and he knew she would not have ran off.
After a few frustrating days, the search was called off. Roxanne Woodson had vanished. Until the afternoon of April 8th, 1978.
Roxanne's body was found after Joe's mother was standing at the window in the kitchen looking out, and she noticed that the dogs were digging and going on at one specific location there. And she became alarmed. She went outside and walked up on what proved to be 2 hands sticking out of the ground.
Oh! Louis! Louis!
She notified the authorities at that time, and they came to the Shepherd home and did remove the body of Roxanne Woodson from Joe Shepherd's mother and father's yard.
Roxanne had been buried in a shallow grave. Some of her clothes were missing, and her pants had been wrapped around her head.
At that point, the Monroe County Sheriff's deputy took out a warrant charging the suspect, Joe Shepherd, with first-degree murder.
We went to his mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law's home to conduct a search, and they told us he wasn't there. We went in and searched the house and found him. There was a child in the bed, and he was rolled up in the covers under the foot of the bed, like the cover was just rolled down to the foot of the bed. He was hidden in there.
Joe, look at me. We found Roxanne, Joe. We found her, Joe. Look here, Joe. Found her buried in your front yard. Look at him, Joe. We found her buried in your yard.
During a second interrogation, Joe's story began to change.
Come on, Joe. Just tell us the truth what happened to her.
Joe began to fill in the blanks of the statement that he had earlier given, and he said that when Roxanne ran from the car and into the woods, he gave chase, and that as she was running through the woods, that she had fallen and struck her head.
Roxanne. She'd hit her head or something. I come up on her and I tried to revive her. I thought maybe she was just knocked out.
He told investigators that he panicked and returned to his car and companions. They left the area. Joe claimed he returned to the scene later that same night. Unsure whether Roxanne was dead or alive, he carried her back to his car. He placed the girl inside and drove off into the night.
I didn't do nothing to her. All I did is I figured, you know, something could happen to her out there, an animal or something, so I thought, I'll bury her. That's what I'll do. So I did. I took her back to the house buried.
According to Joe Shepherd, not knowing what to do with in his previous encounters with the law, he was afraid to contact any law enforcement. So then he decided to bury her, and he could find no other place other than his residence there in Tellico Plains. He never did actually admit to being responsible for her death. He admitted he had been with her and that she had died as a result of some sort of head injury that she had attained when she fell.
As a result of your investigation...
Joe was brought before a judge. He recommended that Joe be formally charged with the murder of Roxanne Woodson.
Bound to the grand jury, bond is set at $150,000.
As a Roxanne Woodson story began to draw to a close, another murder case was about to be reopened.
After Joe had been charged in regards to the homicide, the investigators who had talked with him and questioned him, they had became pretty much buddies. Joe had learned to trust these people, and he wanted to help them.
Detective Joe Graves had received an anonymous phone call linking Joe to another disappearance, that of a girl named Kathy Clowers, a local 14-year-old who had vanished 2 years earlier.
I can take her to the last place I saw her.
I need you to take us and show us where she is now. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can take you there.
Joe told them that not only did he know Kathy Clowers, but he knew where she was buried. He offered to take them there.
About a half mile.
We went into the woods, probably a couple of 100 yards off the highway. Joe had designated a spot where we ought to dig. We had taken along a pickaxe and shovel and such and started digging in the ground. We'd gone down some depth and hadn't uncovered the body at all. I took the pickaxe just to sort of relieve the guy who had been doing the digging, and after about the second effort, a piece of red cloth came up on the head of the pickaxe. I'll never forget Joe Shepherd was hunkered down beside the hole we were digging, and he looked up with this cold smile on his face and said, "See, I told you so." He was proud, I think, of the fact that he had produced a body for us, and showed no emotion at all.
Though the body was badly decomposed, Dr. William Bass, a noted forensic anthropologist, was able to identify it as that of Kathy Clowers.
Looks to be fairly young, maybe mid-teens. Kathy Clowers had chipped a tooth, and this matched the chipped tooth that she had.
Dr. Bass, is there anything that indicates the cause of death?
There was no evidence on the skeleton of cause of death. There were no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, no broken bones. Whatever caused death did not leave its mark on the skeleton.
The clothing of this girl, a pants leg had been wrapped around her head, very similar to the manner in which the Woodson child had been buried. There had been a pants leg wrapped around her head.
On April 17, 1978, Joe Shepherd was formally indicted for the murder of Kathy Clowers. While awaiting trial for the double homicides, Joe was held at the Bradley County Jail. On July 17, 1978, one of the jailers was summoned to a cell near Joe's.
What's the matter with you, boy?
The jailer was lured into the cell by a man feigning sickness.
What's your problem? I don't know, I'm sick. You make a move and I'll shoot you.
After locking up the jailer, the two men went to Joe Shepherd's cell. They released him, and the three men fled the prison. While the other two escapees were recaptured the following week, Joe Shepherd remains at large.
I feel certain that Joe is a danger to society. The methodology that he put into each act was that of a very criminal mind, a mind that feels no guilt, or he is just there and he's capable of doing it at any time. We don't know what sets him off.
I would like to see him brought to justice. I'd like to see justice done for personal reasons and for the love of my granddaughter. I would like to see it, but also for the mothers out there that their daughters might be in danger.
These pictures of Joe Arlen Shepherd were taken in 1978. He is 6 feet tall and weighs about 150 pounds. He has brown hair, a scar on his left forearm, and he may be working as an auto mechanic. Shepherd has recently been seen in El Paso, Texas, and the authorities believe he may be living somewhere along the Mexican border. Update. London, Ontario, Canada. The 10-year search for Joe Shepherd has ended.
After the Unsolved Mystery show on October the 5th, we received a phone call from a local resident saying that he believed the guy called Shepherd was in fact living in London under the name Joseph Tripp. We began an investigation, and when we had identified him to our satisfaction as Shepherd, he was arrested.
At the time of his arrest, Shepherd was living in a government housing project in London, Ontario, with his common-law wife and their 2 children.
It seems apparent that Mr. Shepherd was in London, Canada, just within a matter of days after his escape from Bradley County.
Wiscasset, Maine. A picturesque town of 3,000 people. Each year, vacationers come here to escape. But for Gail Delano, who lived in Wiscasset, this vacation paradise was a prison. She wrote about it in her diary.
Maine seems to bring out the worst in me. I don't see an end to my loneliness. It just seems to go on forever. I need someone so desperately, but nothing seems to work.
Gail Delano was twice divorced and the mother of 2 teenage boys. She looked for companionship in the personal ads of her local newspaper. When she placed the ads, she described herself exuberantly.
Unique female, 34. Attractive, trim, intelligent, affectionate, independent, slightly crazy night owl. Likes music, movies, dance, dining. Seeks easygoing, intelligent, responsible, not overweight male for growing relationship. I'm in Wiscasset. Where are you?
June 21st, 1986. Gail Delano drove alone to a restaurant in Brunswick, Maine, to meet a blind date. Gail's family never saw or heard from her again. Despite the tone of her personal ads, Gail Delano was shy and withdrawn. For Gail, placing these ads was an act of courage. It was also an act of hope. The last entry in her diary read, "It would be nice to find someone to date over the summer. Who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky and find someone interesting." Gail was searching not only for companionship, but also for a father figure for her 2 boys. Her desperate need to find love placed her in the center of an unsolved mystery. Friday evening, June 20th, 1986. Gail's sons recalled that she had a 2.5-hour telephone conversation with a man named John, a man they assumed their mother had met through the personal ads.
Mom, this isn't like you.
Well, I'm in a pretty good mood today.
Really? Why?
Got a call from John last night?
The next morning, Gail told her son she planned to have coffee with John at the Howard Johnsons in Brunswick. And then, if things went well, spend the afternoon with him.
Be good while I'm gone.
That night, Gail's 13-year-old son Ryan returned home from a friend's house. He discovered that his mother was not at home.
Mom?
Ryan was concerned but not alarmed.
Mom?
When Gail did not return home the next night, her family called the police. It was now 37 hours from the time Gail Delano had left home to meet her date. The police immediately searched the Howard Johnson's parking lot and located Gail's car.
There was no indication at that point that there was any foul play. Basically, it was an adult woman who has gone out and spent the night. The history we got was that that's not unusual for her to spend the night out, although it was unusual for her to do it without calling.
You know, when she'd been gone that long, it just wasn't right, because she was so careful about keeping track with the children where she was, that we knew if she'd been gone for that long, that something was haywire.
Gail's family was forced to wait until 11 o'clock Monday morning to have her officially declared a missing person. Only then could the police search her car.
When we got the car open, we tried to see if there would be a note or anything that would be from Gail that would explain particularly who she was with, because at this point we figured this guy that she had the date with had done something.
Is there anything in there?
No, it's pretty clean.
And we looked the car over and there was nothing in the car.
Normally I know the person's first and last name and where he's from, but this one time we just missed the one, had to be that one time. I'd spoken with her earlier that afternoon, and she said, I have a feeling I'm going to have a date, I'm going to do something happy, and I'm going to have fun this weekend. And then, look what happened.
2 hours after the police had removed Gail's car, a Howard Johnson's busboy made a startling discovery.
The manager of Howard Johnson's called the Brunswick Police Department to notify them that one of their busboys had found a set of keys in the parking slot where Gail Delano's car had been parked prior to their moving it.
When the policeman handed those keys, he said, are these Gail's keys? And I said, oh my God. I said, they'd have to kill her short of getting those keys from her, and I just about came unglued then, and I guess I said to Platt, "You've got to find my baby. Where is she? Where is she?"
2 weeks later, a 9-year-old boy playing on the other side of the Howard Johnsons made a second startling discovery: Gail's purse.
Finding the purse at the parking lot kind of raised our concern about the possibility of foul play.
I was just heartsick when I found out, because, again, she would not let go of that handbag, short of being bopped in the head or dragged away.
See what we can find in there, maybe that might help us. Actually, the pocketbook was very neat inside and quite orderly. So it appeared right from the beginning that it had not been rifled through by anybody looking for any type of money or things of this nature.
Curiously, while the purse appeared untouched, there was no money in it.
Folding wallet with...
Even the emergency $5 bill that Gail always kept tucked in a secret compartment was missing.
Further later on.
Using a date book they found in her purse, Detectives Mallet and Bradford compiled a list of the men that Gail might have dated in the last year.
June 20th. The last entry in there is John called, talked 2.5 hours.
One of them was a man named John from Old Orchard Beach.
Do you have any kind of quarrel with her?
This man swore he had never dated Gail. He said the only time he might have talked to her on the phone was months before she disappeared.
Not really, it wasn't arranged.
He had a rock-solid alibi for the day Gail vanished. So did all the other men the police questioned.
You're next.
The police were totally baffled. Gail kept detailed records of the men who responded to her ads. Yet there was no record of a man named John in her files. Who had called Gail and talked for 2.5 hours the night before she disappeared?
Yeah, right.
Why were her keys found in exactly the spot where her car had been parked? Why was Gail's purse found on the other side of the restaurant, apparently untouched, but with no money in it? Were the keys and purse thrown where they lay by someone who attacked Gail? Or is it possible Gail placed the keys and purse herself?
2:35 this Sunday morning, Chris Roy.
A new theory about Gail's disappearance emerged when police interviewed a local late-night disc jockey.
I was working the overnights at this radio station, and Gail would call sometime after 1 o'clock in the morning just to talk and go on in general about life experiences. Gail, how are you? And then Gail finally asked if I would like to meet her. Gail always seemed to be very, very sad or depressed, almost to the point of not being able to move. Always you felt that Gail was just going to perhaps give up at any moment, just cease to exist, disappear literally, right sitting there on the couch.
For years, Gail had struggled with depression and had been on medication for it. Several times she had considered taking her own life and had talked about it with her sister. Gail's family reluctantly considered whether her disappearance might have been a suicide.
I don't feel that Gail committed suicide because I don't believe that she would ever have left us to go through this kind of pain and not knowing if she's out there somewhere. I think that she definitely doesn't know who she is, and that would be, of course, our best scenario, is that she's out there somewhere and that we can find her.
With the help of truck drivers, Gail's family distributed missing posters throughout the eastern United States. Over a year after Gail disappeared, a truck driver spotted her missing poster in a Georgia truck stop.
On Friday, August 14, 1987, I received a phone call in the evening from a man named John Scott of Swansea, South Carolina. Earlier that day, he'd seen a missing persons poster of Gail Delano. He recognized that woman as one that he had given a ride to several months earlier.
I was with her somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 hours. She didn't talk too much, but she had that northern accent pretty bad. You know, you could tell she was from up north. She was sort of a neat type of woman. And mostly you catch these regular hitchhikers, I'd call them, and truck stop queen. You don't care how they dress, you know, and how they go. But this woman was dressed pretty neat. You could tell she was different than the regular one, you know what I'm talking about?
You can't travel along the road without any money. So you take that $20.
I asked him, did he notice anything about her, whether she was on medication or took any medication or anything of this sort? He did notice some pill bottles, but he had no idea what might be in them. My next question to him was how sure he felt that this was, in fact, Gail Delano.
I would bet money on it, that was her.
The truck driver's story suggested another possibility. Could Gail have engineered her own disappearance from the Brunswick restaurant?
Gail could have told the children that she was going to a restaurant to meet a gentleman by the name of John. Gail could have easily driven to the restaurant, parked her car, either concealed the keys somewhere under the car or merely tossed them under the car, stating to herself she was going to give up her identity, throw the purse in the shrubbery, and either catch a ride with somebody leaving the restaurant area or perhaps even a truck driver leaving the area.
The Gail Delano I met did not seem to have it together enough or brave enough or sure of herself enough to just pack it up and head for another part of the country without telling anyone what she was doing. They couldn't even get Gail Delano to go for a Sunday drive or out to a restaurant or for an ice cream, and I really cannot picture Gail Delano as just getting in a car and just going to the other side of the country.
She could just as well have thrown her hands up and said the heck with it all and just took off. But what we're afraid of is that she's out there wandering around, possibly not knowing who she is, needing our help. I want her to know that if she's well and happy, and I pray she is, she doesn't have to come home. She doesn't even have to call if she'll just let somebody know that she's alive so that we can put ourselves at peace.
Gail's parents are no closer to the truth than on the day their daughter disappeared. Was she the victim of foul play, or is she wandering somewhere, unaware of her own identity? Or could the blind date with John merely have been an elaborate ruse Gail concocted to cover up her own disappearance?
The only thing I want is to find a man to share my life. I know I'm lonely and tired of doing it all by myself. Time is becoming a big enemy to me. To say it passes slowly is a laugh. For me, it seems to stand still.
Update, Mobile, Alabama. The 2.5-year search for Gail Delano has come to an end. Tragically, she took her own life shortly after she disappeared. A forensic administrator in Mobile watched our program and recognized Gail's photo as a woman who had died in a local hotel room in 1986.
When I saw the photograph, I immediately saw the resemblance between Ms. Delano and an unidentified body that we had in our laboratory in Mobile.
After 2 weeks of forensic tests, positive identification was made. Police now theorize that Gail Delano orchestrated her own disappearance. They believe that after she drove to the restaurant, she hid her keys somewhere on the car, removed all the money from her purse, discarded it, and then flew to Alabama. That evening, she checked into a hotel in Mobile, where she registered under the name Jackie Stafford. 3 days later, police discovered her body. She had died from a drug overdose. On November 11th, Gail's family held a memorial service for her in Brunswick, Maine. Gail's family showed remarkable courage as for 2 long years they searched for the truth. Her loss saddens us all, and to her parents and sons we send our deepest sympathy. For every mystery, there is someone, somewhere, who knows the truth. Perhaps that someone is watching. Perhaps it's you.